Alright, today we will cover algebraic proof. I will have you pause your video so that you could take the notes. Again, very simple. It's just pretty much conditioning you guys for proofs, and it makes it very easy for you. We've never had any troubles with it as long as you understand how to solve algebraic expressions, right? So you'll be fine. My family's still up, so you will probably hear children, TVs, dogs, all types of things in the background. I apologize in advance. Alright, pause the video and write this definition of proof. A proof is an argument that uses logic, definitions, properties, and previously proven statements to show that a conclusion is true. So we're going to pretty much tell why. They'll ask you to prove something and we'll be able to tell why. But you guys have enough knowledge to make this fairly easy. Alright, pause this video, and what I want you to do is copy this chart. It's actually a T-chart. You see, these are the properties of equality, and you have the addition property, the subtraction property, the multiplication property, division, reflexive, symmetric, transitive, and substitution. I want you to write these properties. The addition property, and then that is explaining the property here. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Go ahead and pause the video and copy these properties. And this is Annie. Sorry, it's cut A-N-Y over here. Alright, so addition property of equality. That means that you have A equals B. When I add C to both sides, I have A plus C equals B plus C. That's what it means, okay? So if you have a problem, if you just come down here, guys, just quickly. If I have X minus 6 equals 2, in order to solve for X, I add 6 to both sides, right? And so that step was the addition property of equality, okay? Same thing. So if I have X plus 6 equals 2, now we have the subtraction property of equality. You just subtract when you subtract from both sides. So when I subtract 6 from both sides, that step, I'm justifying this step. So I use the subtraction property of equality. So you see where we're going here? Same thing. If I have, let's erase all of that ink on the slide. So here, the multiplication property of equality. If I have to multiply on both sides. Division property, if I have to divide on both sides. Now the reflexive property just means everything equals itself. Very simple. Symmetric property is what we use. You guys remember sometimes you'll have like a 6 equals X when you finish a problem, and we rewrite it as X equals 6. That is the symmetric property of equality. You're just changing, just moving everything. What's on the right side, you move it to the left. What's on the left side, you move to the right. That is a symmetric property. The transitive property, you see here, if A equals, it's almost like substitution, but if A equals B, but B also equals C, that means A equals C. Right? So if A is B and B is C, that means A is C. So again, that's good sense, right? You got to use your common sense there. And of course, the substitution property, if A equals B, then B can be substituted for A in any expression. So that's what it means. We will use it, and I'll give you lots of examples, guys. All right, now I want you to write properties of congruence. When we're dealing with properties of equality, we're dealing with numeric values, okay, with numbers. Congruence, we're talking about shapes and angles. So pause the video and write these properties of congruence. There's only 3. Reflexive property of congruence, symmetric property of congruence, and transitive property of congruence. You write those 3, and it's the same thing. You see, reflexive, segment EF is congruent to segment EF. Symmetric, you change the order, but nothing changes, right? Angle 1 is congruent to angle 2, So that means angle 2 is congruent to angle 1. We just swapped it. Symmetric. And transitive is, to me, just like substituting. We're using good sense, right? If PQ is congruent to RS and TU is also congruent to RS, that means PQ and TU are congruent. So that is the transitive property. I could like to call that the common sense property, right? All right, so now we're going to go right into examples. So here, automatically you see equal. So these are properties of equality. Equal, property of equality, equal, and then congruence. So let's try the first one. All right, let's see. DE equals GH. So GH equals DE. You just swapped sides. So it is the symmetric property, I cannot talk today, of equality. And I'm not going to write it all the way out. All right, number 2, 94 degrees is equal to 94 degrees. The property that everything is equal to itself, that is the reflexive property of equality. All right, here, 4 equals A, and A equals X, so 4 equals X, right? So if 4 is A, and X is A, that means 4 and X are the same as well. That is the transitive property of equality. All right, so now we have angle A is congruent to angle Y, so angle Y is congruent to angle A. That is the symmetric property, right? Angle A is congruent to angle Y. All we did was change the order. And angle Y is congruent to angle A. That is the symmetric property of congruence, because we're dealing with angles and you see the congruent symbol. All right, so now we will solve the equation and write a justification for each step. So this is how the proof works. I want you to solve the equation. So the first thing you do is actually write the given equation. The first step is given. It is given that 1/2 t equals -7. Make note of that, guys. Make sure you pause the video to write the problem, or at least here, write that down. So 1/2 t equals -7. First step, given. All right, so now what do I do to solve? So let's say you need to multiply both sides by 2. Let's see if I can change the color to help out a little bit. Here, let's try that. So if I multiply both sides by 2, what would be this step? What property? If I multiply both sides by 2, I use the multiplication. Y'all, I promise it's that simple. Multiplication property of equality. All right, so I have to now simplify, right? So when I actually work them out, multiply both sides by 2, I end up with t equals -14. And so that final step, all I did was simplify. Again, we will practice so much, you won't think twice about any of these steps. It's very simple. All right, solve the equation. 4m minus 8 equals -12. First step, given. Okay, so it is given that 4m minus 8 equals -12. All right, so now let's use our algebra that you guys all used to algebra. Sorry guys, I pushed the pause button by mistake. But use the algebra that you all know and have mastered. So first things first, let's add 8 to both sides. So since I added 8 to both sides, what property was that? That is the addition property of equality. So that is what I have you guys doing. You are justifying steps. All right, so now you have 4m equals negative 4. So this step you just simplify. Alright, now here I need to divide both sides by 4. So what did I do? Division property. All you're doing is just pretty much explaining. So now you see why your teachers wanted you to show all of your work, and we simplified. So the properties of equality, it's a property of equality. Whatever you're doing it to both sides of the equal sign. Now when I'm just adding and subtracting as a result, that's just simplifying. So you make sure you remember that. All right, what is the temperature in degrees Celsius when it is 86 degrees Fahrenheit? So I have the equation here. C equals 5/9 times F minus 32. It is given. All right, so my next step, I am going to have to plug. I'm trying to solve for C. It's 86 degrees Fahrenheit, so let's plug it in. We have C equals 5/9 times 86 minus 32. And what property was that? That was substitution, okay? All right, so now let's simplify. I have C equals 5/9. 86 minus 32 is 54. And I just simplified. And 5/9 times 54 is 30. Same thing. I just simplified, okay? Now, if I did multiply 5/9 times 54, but I did not multiply 5/9 times by both sides, right? And so since I didn't do it to both sides, it's only simplifying. So we simplified to get the answer. All right, so now let's move into figures, our segments. I want you to write a justification for each step. So here, you have the entire segment KM, and it's 5x minus 4. KL is x plus 3, and LM is 2x minus 1. All right, so let's go to, first of all, let's use my red pen since everything's in blue. All right, so first step, it says KM is equal to KL plus LM. What postulate is that? All of this segment is equal to KL plus LM. What postulate is that? That is the segment addition postulate. And pause the video if you guys need to do that, to draw this segment, label it, and write these steps down. It's great practice. All right, so next we have KM equals KL plus LM. The next step, we now have 5x minus 4 equals x plus 3 plus 2x minus 1. What did they do? It was substitution. So that step was substitution. I went from 5x minus 4 equals x plus 3 plus 2x minus 1 to 5x minus 4 equals 3x plus 2. All we did was simplify. All right, so how did they get from this step to this step? What we're doing is actually solving for x. So if you look, I see that they subtracted 3x from both sides. So that is the subtraction property. So now, if you look here, they added 4 to both sides. So you have the addition property. And then here, they divided both sides by 2. So you have the division property. And of course, x equals 3, you simplify it. Now look, guys, I know we simplified between each step, but I wouldn't want you to write that. My main thing, I just need you to understand the properties of equality that we actually use every day. But now you're just justifying the step. This will be the only one that we don't use it every day. You know, you didn't use it before you got into geometry, but you now understand the segment addition postulate. You guys understand that the whole segment is equal to this piece of it plus that piece. All right, write a justification for each step. You have the measure of angle ABC. Let's look at it from A to B to C. So this whole angle is equal to ABD plus DBC. After you pause and write this if you need to, this is the angle addition postulate. It's just that simple, I promise, guys. All right, so next, they substituted. ABC is 8x degrees. It's there. ABD is 3x plus 5 degrees. And DBC is 6x minus 16 degrees. So they just use substitution. Substitution, property of equality. All right, and then they simplify it, right? They combine like terms. 3x plus 6x is 9x. Positive 5 and negative 16 is negative 11. So they combine like terms. So let's just simplify. Here, they subtracted 9x from both sides. So it's the subtraction property of equality. And then it's just up to you how you were taught. Either way is fine with me. But let's say you divided both sides by -1 to get x equals 11, or either you multiply both sides by -1 to get x equals 11. It's however you were taught. But I just used the division property of equality. And of course you simplify it. Again, I know we simplify between every step, but you don't have to write it on these types of problems. I know that you know that. I just want you to write those properties of equality and make sure you understand the angle addition postulate and the segment addition postulate. And I know that was a quick video. I will be back